I am convinced that what we're doing is lawful, and our lawyers are convinced that what we're doing is lawful. But the United States is a government of laws and separations of power, and even if it's an individual district court judge who's making this determination, we've got to go through the process to challenge it.
President Obama yesterday at the closing press conference of the G7 summit saying he still stands behind his executive amnesty, claims it's completely lawful, as you just heard, no matter what the circuit court says. His comments come as a new report we mentioned earlier from Breitbart.com says that a new surge of illegals across our border has begun. The National Border Patrol Council reports that yesterday, over 70 women and children crossed our southern border in just 1 hour. Well, it's a perfect time to bring in our panel from New York. Liz Peek, columnist and contributor for the Fiscal Times, and Skyping in from Washington, D.C., David Goodfriend, former Deputy Staff Secretary to President Bill Clinton. David, maybe you can clear this up for me. Time and again, the president said he couldn't take action, couldn't go through with executive amnesty, but he changes his mind and he doubles down yesterday. What changed his mind as a constitutional lawyer over the past few months?
Well, I think the president pretty much said as much in the clip that you played. Any lawyer can advise a client based on precedent, and any good lawyer can say, we have a shot in court, and I think this is a legitimate interpretation. Just look, for example, at how Republican governors, after the Supreme Court ruled that Obamacare is perfectly legal, they went at it again and filed a lawsuit. That's fair game. There's no lock on the courthouse door. The president has taken a legitimate legal interpretation to the law. There are some who disagree with that. That's why we have courts, and the courts will ultimately decide what's right and what's wrong here. But as it stands now, the president is acting under advice of counsel, which shows good faith adherence to the law.
Liz, your take on this entire situation and the president begrudgingly going along with the court decision on amnesty.
Well, he doesn't have any choice on that. But I think the issue, the reason so many people are worried about these executive actions on amnesty, we've had one, of course, the Mini Dreamers Act. Now we have a much, much bigger one encompassing maybe 4 to 5 million people, is that it doesn't do anything. In fact, it encourages more illegal immigration. And I think it's interesting to note the statistics that you were mentioning about people coming across the border again. There is no question that the 2012 measure, the DACA, which did allow people to stay in the country even though they were here illegally, encouraged the surge of people across the border a year later. And I think we're seeing that again. Word travels south that we're not going to enforce our borders, we're not going to send people home, and sure enough, more people come because this is winning the payday. I mean, coming to the United States, if you're allowed to stay, is a huge, huge win. So, I mean, unfortunately, this is what sort of the end result is of what I think is an illegal action on the part of the president. It is beyond the scope of anything done before. And again, you have a very good person basically presenting the fact that it's illegal, which is the president himself.
Couple of minutes remain. Want to get to another story, and that has to do with what went on down in that Dallas suburb. Texas police under fire after that video we saw over the weekend showing an officer throwing a teenager to the ground, and then the officer pulling his gun on others at a pool party. Al Sharpton is speaking out. He's getting involved. And again, it looks like this has the trappings of a racial dispute rather than one between law enforcement and the public at large. Liz, 30 seconds for your take on what's happened down there in Texas.
Well, I think as usual, it's sort of it's ambiguous. Clearly, the police were called in to stop trespassing and other unlawful acts. It looked like this cop really did go overboard. And it's just sad to me that every issue now between the police who are trying to keep order and people who are creating mayhem turns into a race issue. Some of the people on the scene say it was not racially motivated. Of course, Al Sharpton climbs aboard. The president and our mayor, Bill de Blasio, have welcomed Al Sharpton back to the table. I think that was just a huge mistake for racial relations in this country. And I just think these are really unfortunate circumstances.
David Goodfriend, final 30 seconds to you on what happened down in Texas.
Any father of a teenage girl would find that video infuriating, and that's beyond race. That's just being a good father. And I think, look, I've represented labor unions that have police officers as dues-paying members, and I think there's good policing and there's bad policing. This is an example, it seems, from this video, of extremely bad judgment. And the problem is we give police officers lethal force, and we trust them to husband that force. If these are children, and they are children, God only knows what that police officer would do if there were real thugs coming at him.
We will have to leave it right there. David Goodfriend and Liz Peek, our thanks to you for a lively discussion, and Newsmax Prime continues after this.